I was 23 when I got drafted, and then I got out that was in 1963, and I got out in April of 65. Yeah, 65.
Okay.
1963, I thought we got married in 1961.
No, we got married in 66.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we did.
Okay. So, and you're
I
telling
think
me,
he's got it mixed
okay,
up.
you were telling me why you stayed in the States for your service.
The reason I stayed in the States because I was the only son, and if you're the only son, they're not supposed to send you across out of the United States. So I've been told. I don't know if it's true or not.
What about the guy
That's-
that got killed or died? That was an only son. Oh, look over there.
That was a different deal. He signed up. But I don't think he got killed overseas, did he, Gallup? I was actually the operator on the telephone. That didn't amount to nothing either. But I didn't get to learn nothing much about communication parts,
No?
that I could have
Used afterwards.
used afterwards, got a job.
Yeah.
What about the guy that you give your long johns to?
Oh, yeah, a bunch of guys from California was in our
I heard
outfit.
that werewolf.
And they're big crybabies anyway. But anyway, these guys were telling how cold it was and it's freezing and all this. And I said to this one guy, I said, "Don't you have it home, Johns?" And he said, "Yeah," but he said, "I don't have enough of them." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I'll do." I said, "I'll give you mine if I can get a row or two back to put in my display when we're having an inspection." Because I said, "I don't want them." I said, "I'm from Ohio, I live in the cold, and I'm tough."
You're hot. You got a hot.
And so I give this guy my long johns. So he was happy. And I didn't, since I'm going away, somebody might as well get some good out of it.
Yep.
I thought he said, "Thank you. You saved my life." The next day. That's what you told me.
Yeah, something like that. They had what they call wind duty. It gets pretty windy out there. And you have to take certain tents down when the winds get so strong. They take them down so it won't tear the tent off.
Okay.
And if you were around in the post when that come about, you were supposed to go help take the tents down.
Okay.
But you had leave. You had
Well,
leave.
that didn't matter. You were still on the post.
I think you're telling that different than
So-
what you told me.
He come in and he told me, he said, you gotta go help take the tents down. I said, "Oh, I'm on leave." He said, "Well, you ain't on leave, you're here."
But you
And
left.
I said, "Well, I'm about ready to leave, I guess."
He left.
And he said, "You gotta go down there. I'm telling you, you got to go, 'cause you're here." And I said, "Well, I got to tell you that I'm not gonna go."
Now you got it.
And so he reported me to my
Now he's got it.
battery commander.
Uh-huh.
And I had to go in and talk with him, and he said, the battery commander, they called me out when we had roll call in the morning. They called my name out that I was to meet with I forget what his name was now, but he was a colonel. No, he was a captain. Right after breakfast, you should meet with him. Okay. So I went and ate breakfast and come back and went in and reported in, and so the guy took me in his room, and he said, Harold, he said, I can't believe you did that. And I said, well, he just caught me in a bad mood, I guess. But I said, I'm a short timer. He said, yes, I know that, because it was going to get me out early.
Okay.
And he said, another bad thing is, I was just going to promote you to a corporal, I guess it was. And I said, well, that's part of life, I guess. I said, it don't mean that much to me, only it's a little less money than what I was thinking I was going to get, I said, I can live with that.
Didn't bother you a
So
bit.
he said, well, I'm going to have to bust you for what you did. And I said, well, that's okay. I said, I don't care. I can live with it. I said, I'm short timer. I said, I don't care what happens. But for a while, I was pulling guard at a bank on the post. And we had a young lieutenant again, well, the same one, but anyway, I could hear him coming. And he got close enough, I pretty much could tell who he was. And I hollered at him, halt! Identify yourself. And I didn't get no answer. I said, I know there's somebody out there. You better identify yourself or you're going to get shot. And so he said, he identified himself and he come. Well, while he was coming, I shot up over his head. Scared that shit out of him, I guess.
I hope not, no.
But anyway, he was going to get me court-martialed for trying to
Shoot at him.
kill him. And I said, that's fine, let's go. So when we went to the commander of the post, and I told my story, I don't know what he told him. But anyway, he got busted, and I didn't. So, these young officers think that they're high and mighty. They got all kinds of authority. But I know my rights too,
Yep.
and I was doing what I was supposed to do. And then one other, my name's Harold Brachman. I got drafted into the U.S. Army
Okay.
in 1963, October. I was swore in on Halloween.
Trick or treat.
And I took my basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. from there, I was supposed to go to Fort Sill, and they said they changed my orders, and I ended up in Fort. I can't think of the name of the fort now.
What state?
It was in Colorado. The closest town to it was Pueblo. Shoot, I can't think. Fort Carson, I think is what it was.
Okay.
And while I was there, I did a lot of KP and a lot of guard duty. And I was there my whole term. I stayed in that post. But one night I was pulling guard duty, and we had a smart aleck second lieutenant as the officer of the day.
Okay.
And I took my turn of guarding, and it was time for him to come and relieve me. And nobody showed up, and I waited 15 minutes, and nobody showed up. So I run another 8-hour guard shift. So come time to change guards, and didn't nobody show up again. So I waited 15 minutes and nobody showed up. And so I just took off on foot for the guardhouse. And I went to the guardhouse, and the sergeant of guards was there. Well, know what I wanted, and I said, well, I was guarding the motor pool down there, and I said, I've done 2 shifts, and I've started the third one, and I come up here to find out where everybody's at, or whether they moved, or what they did.
Uh-huh.
And he said, are you sure? And I said, yes. I said, where's the officer today? He said, oh, he's in there sleeping. I said, well, then ain't you in charge? Well, not really. He said, I'm supposed to wake him up if there's anything goes wrong. I said, well, it was going wrong, but evidently nobody knows about it. So he went in and woke up this lieutenant, and I explained to him what was going on, and he said, you're full of bullshit. I said, just like you are. I said, I pulled 2 duties and part of the third one while you're laying in here sleeping and not doing your job. And he said, well, you left your post. He said, I'm going to get you for leaving your post. I said, go right ahead, don't bother me. Because I said, I'm going to get your ass too.
Yep.
I would.
So it ended up at nothing ever become of it. I don't know why, but